Could it be? For me, your man, Louie T, here with my day after reaction of the regular season finale, Week 18, 23-19 victory over the Dallas Cowboys, getting the Commanders to 12-5 on the season, securing the 6th seed in the NFC playoffs, which they will be traveling to Tampa Bay on Sunday night. The NFL has spoken, and they have deemed the 3-6 matchup between the Bucks and Commanders to be the most important game, or in their minds, the most exciting game of Wild Card Weekend, Super Wild Card Weekend, thus putting it in the most prominent spot. And again, I talked about the Jaden Daniels effect. I talked about the excitement surrounding this kid. I talked about how the NFL is really propping him up because of what he's done this season. He is must-see TV. I told you what my buddy said, that this is akin to the Michael Vick experience. If you lived through that, if you experienced that, then you know just how magical that was. This is akin to that. I don't know if it's exactly that. Vic was something else, and we had never really seen anything like that before or since. You know, older people say, well, we saw Randall Cunningham. Yeah, Randall was different because you hadn't seen anything before Randall, but Vic is, to me, the gold standard for a mobile quarterback. And I know Lamar Jackson has come in, shattered his record for the most rushing yards in NFL history by a quarterback, but it was the way Vic did it, and Vic was also a dynamic thrower of the football, something that Lamar Jackson hasn't been until this season. But Jaden comes right out of the gate as both, right? Dynamic runner and passer of the football. And so we are in the most prominent spot in Super Wildcard Weekend. That is not an accident, folks. It just speaks to, and I told you guys 2 or 3 weeks ago, get used to being in this spotlight. It's going to be bright. It's going to be hot. Okay, those lights are bright. They're hot. The stage is big. We're getting 5 prime timers. And I think you're going to also have an extra on the side, a Thanksgiving, a Black Friday. They're going to give us something that we probably don't want on the side to go along with the 5 prime timers that we already have. We're going to get that Patrick Mahomes, that Lamar Jackson, that Joe Burrow type treatment, that Josh Allen type treatment. And I hope you're prepared. This is a precursor to that. They're showing you their hand by putting us on Sunday Night Football a couple of weeks ago against Atlanta, and then doubling down on it in Wild Card Weekend. Tells you all you need to know about what's coming next year on the schedule for the Commanders. And we got a ton of games that they're going to try to feature. We play the Chiefs. We play the Chargers, right? The schedule, the home and away schedule has come out, right? And we'll talk more about that on the nightly news program. But we got a lot of games that they're going to be salivating at the prospects of putting them on primetime television. Chiefs, Chargers, we play the Bears, we play the Broncos, right? So again, they're going to try to put these young quarterbacks against each other. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, right? Obviously. And as I mentioned, when you got one of them ones, they're going to try to put those two against each other. So Chiefs, Chargers, right? So a lot of games that, and if you get another young quarterback, say in a, Vegas or wherever, that can end up on the schedule as well. And then, of course, you still got NFC East contests. When we play Philadelphia, when we play the Cowboys, they're going to want to put those on, in a marquee spot. So brace yourselves. But reacting to the game yesterday, a lot of takeaways. I think I want to start with Jaden Daniels and his health. I mean, Dan Quinn after the game said it was not the plan to take him out of that game. The plan was for him to go all the way through. And, I've downplayed this injury because I don't think he's hurt. I just think they were being precautious. Was he a little banged up? Sure. Absolutely. And even Jaden admitted it after the game. It's like, yeah, it was a little sore. And, I communicated with DQ and he thought that it was best that I sit out. And so, all parties involved understood, like, this is a meaningless game. We want the 6th seed. We want to win 12 games. We want to go into the playoffs. And Terry made it seem like it was, this was definitely a have-to-have-it game, which as a fan, I appreciate. Because if this were the Tennessee Titans, maybe I would have felt a little differently, but I want to win every game. So it wouldn't have mattered. But it was the Dallas Cowboys, and they had already beaten us once. You damn right I wanted this game bad, right? So Terry's like, no. We couldn't go into the playoffs with a loss. We needed to win this game and make it 5 straight heading into the postseason and having that momentum. But, they understood the assignment like, hey, Jaden's a little banged up, not going to press it, and the Cowboys were on his ass, right? Pause. So, let's not, continue to put him in a position where this thing could, maybe exacerbate. Let's get Marcus out there. Marcus is fully capable. And, one of the biggest takeaways from yesterday was the fact that Marcus Mariota should be here, right? I think all of us, and I spoke to so many fans yesterday, so many viewers kind of echoed the same sentiments. I don't like speaking for you guys, but so many viewers after the game was like, yo, sign Marcus up for a lifetime contract. As long as Jaden is here, Marcus has a spot here because not only has he been a great mentor, but, Marcus gives you exactly what you're looking for. And you don't lose the athletic piece. You don't lose the ability to run a lot of the same things that, we run when Jaden is in the game. You can just continue to run the offense as is. Again, Marcus is going to be a highly sought after commodity this offseason, and he's got to do what's best for his family. Obviously, he just had another one, a little son. So now he's got a young daughter. She's probably like 2 now, maybe going on 3. And now he's got a son added to his family. And so I think he'd want to settle down. And, if this is the place he wants to do that at, great. But, somebody's going to come calling this offseason with maybe a ton of money and an opportunity to do the same thing he did this year, mentoring a young quarterback that was selected relatively high. I wouldn't be shocked if a Tennessee, for instance, decided to bring him home and have him mentor Shador. I wouldn't be shocked if, Cleveland is out of the question. That's not somewhere where he can go because they can't afford to pay anybody anything, not at the quarterback position. So, but, there are going to be other quarterbacks that, are selected, Quinn Ewers and others. And so who knows how this thing will shake out. But Marcus Mariota will probably be a commodity that teams look to maybe do some of the things he did this year with Jaden. So I don't know if we'll be able to hold on to him, but I think one thing's for certain. He has an open invitation after the season that he's put forth this year. And this was an exclamation point on what has been a fantastic season as a backup here in Washington, coming in relief in the Carolina game and putting up 40, and then doing what he did in this game, coming in at halftime when we were dead on offense, giving us a spark and leading us to a victory over our most hated rivals in the Dallas Cowboys. So he was fantastic yesterday. And I think that was one of the bigger takeaways from yesterday's performance. But when we get to the granular details of yesterday's game and the things that we saw and how they translate to future performances, I do think there are some things to be concerned about. Now, keep this in mind. The Dallas Cowboys have gotten better defensively as they've gotten healthier. And they didn't have DeMarvion Overshown, which is, a guy that I think is on par with Micah Parsons in terms of being a disruptor the second time around. They had him the first time, and, that was really problematic for us. 2 guys that can fly around at warp speed for a line that already struggles blocking guys that are that quick. And again, there aren't a ton of Micah Parsonses running around in the NFL. Thank God, because we have a tough time blocking him, as do most teams. But us in particular, I can't speak for other teams. We really struggle in that department. But the rushing woes continue with the running backs. I can tell you this, it was good to see Austin Eckler back, and I think he makes a difference, a massive difference. I even liked the way he ran the football. I thought he ran the football more assertively, more decisively, I think is the best word, than any of the other backs in the game. And so that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. I think he'll be maybe a guy that they look to lean on. Look, here's something that I'm going to tell you. I'm not as concerned, and we'll talk more about Tampa as the week progresses, but I'll just tell you, and I talked about this on one of the shows last night, I'm not as concerned with the lack of run game, particularly this week, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't give it up on the ground anyway. So if there was ever a week where you say, hey, 5, we're going to spread them out, we're going to let you do your thing, this is the week to do that. And if you want to, sprinkle in some Austin Eckler, some gun runs, some read option with that kind of stuff, great. But this is going to be a 5 game. And the one thing I can say about Tampa Bay is they struggle with the mobile quarterback. They struggle with Lamar Jackson this season. They struggled with Jaden earlier this season in week 1. They struggle with mobile passers. Hell, they were struggling with Spencer Rattler on Sunday. Okay, they struggle with mobile quarterbacks, guys that can extend the play. They're not the most athletically gifted defense. They don't fly around out there. So I think that Jaden's legs will pose a huge threat to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. But, it'd be nice if the running backs actually provided a spark. And so I think Eckler right now seems like the guy that may be able to give us the most. He's all the way back. It feels good to have him back, and he looked good catching the ball. We threw it to him a couple of times in the game on Sunday. He caught the ball well. He ran it out of the backfield effectively. He definitely has a pep in his step, coming off of a month where he didn't play. So I think he's got a little bit more juice than, most guys this time of the year. So that's a big lift to this team. I think that getting Tyler Biadasz back is going to be massive. That helps. Andrew Wiley looked good. I thought he moved around well yesterday. Hopefully there's no ill effects from him playing in the game yesterday. And hopefully we can get Cornelius Lucas back as well and have a full complement. Like, I get very nervous when we have these injuries and I start to see Chris Paul running on the field and I'm like, no, not him, right? And so yesterday we were down to Chris Paul again, right? We were in that same exact spot against Atlanta, right? When Cornelius Lucas went down, and you're looking around, and Trent Scott is in the game, and this is what, remember, we had to take the 2 timeouts because, Chris Paul had to come in, and he wasn't used to doing that. So, Trent Scott had to come in the game when Brandon Coleman got injured for a brief spell there, and Chris Paul was running onto the field, and they like, nah, Chris, come back. And I'm like, yeah, no, you go back to the sideline, bro. So I just want the full complement of offensive linemen back so that we don't have to, tap into the reserve that deep. You're already playing Michael Dieter. You're already playing, Trent Scott. And so that's a scary proposition. And there's no Cornelius Lucas. So to get Andrew Wiley back, hopefully he's, good to go. And there was no, ill effects or he's no worse for the wear after this game. Hopefully Brandon Coleman's going to be fine. He did finish the game, but as I've told you, finishing the game can be misleading because of the adrenaline and the blood pumping and flowing. Once that blood gets to settle and the swelling sets in, you can be talking about a whole different party next week. So hopefully he's fine. Hopefully Cornelius Lucas is fine. And we're going to get some semblance of the group that we need up front that's going to give us the best chance. Now, I'll tell you this. There were some situations where the offensive line stepped up. And a big one was the 4th and 1 at the end for Marcus Mariota. That was a big 4th and 1 because they crashed down on Eck. Michael Parsons crashed down on Eck. He thought Eckler was getting the ball. Mariota kept it and took off. But that was a gaping hole. It was a gaping hole, and there was nobody else there other than the safety, Malik Hooker, and the corner was way out there. And Mariota almost split the two. After the game, he even joked and said, I should have scored. He said maybe a couple of years ago I would have. I thought he was going to score, right? But nonetheless, there wasn't a Cowboy in sight after Michael Parsons took the bait on the dive, and Mariota kept it. There wasn't a Cowboy in sight, and that's because the offensive line did their job. So, Mariota came in, was very effective, got rid of the ball out of his hands quickly. There were times where he stood back there and was able to deal, especially on that final drive. So you got to give the offensive line credit. Even in its patchwork state, they did enough for us to win 2 stellar drives with Mariota in the game in the second half, including the game winner. Offensive line deserves credit for getting the job done. And I also say that, it wasn't a great performance by the D-line. and in the run game in particular, run defense rather. Um, the Cowboys had one of their better rushing days, but some of that also has to be factored into the point that they had Trey Lance in the game, and his legs posed a threat, and so they were able to do some things that they wouldn't be doing with Dak Prescott or Cooper Rush. But we gave up some yards to Deuce Vaughn. I thought we handled, for the most part, Rico Dowdle. Like I said, he averaged 3.3 yards a carry. I thought we did a good enough job on him. There were some times where we, knifed into the backfield. Frankie Louvu had a couple of tackles for loss. Jeremy Chin had a couple of tackles for loss. So I thought, overall the run defense wasn't atrocious. And, there were a couple of instances where I was absolutely pissed. There was a couple of fourth and short, where the Cowboys offensive line absolutely engulfed our defensive front and it made it a no contest. They would hand it to Louie, the fullback, and he'd get 6-7 yards on a fullback dive because they took the line of scrimmage and erased it and created a new line of scrimmage 2 yards up the field. And I'm like, you can't be serious. There were a couple of those short yardage situations where Louie killed us. I think he had 3 carries for like 17 yards because they were killing us up front. But they redeemed themselves, even though we weren't able to keep them out of the end zone. And I would have really been proud. But I remember saying to myself in the moment how proud I was of them because, after that bogus pass interference penalty on Benjamin St-Juste, they put the ball at the 1. And I'm like, well, it's a foregone conclusion. They've been blowing us up and create a new line of scrimmage. They're going to score on this first carry. They're going to hand it off to Rico Dowdle, and he's going to score. And he didn't. You could argue that we took the ball away from him, but you couldn't see the ball. I just know Jonathan Allen came out of the pile with the football, and but you couldn't see the ball, so there was no way they were going to award that to us. The next play, we stopped them for a 2-yard loss. And I was, Bobby Wagner and company got in there. There was a big surge by the defensive front, pushing the Cowboys off the ball and really disrupting that play. And I was like, hell yeah, I was disappointed that we gave it up on third down, but that was the, Trey Lance element of him potentially keeping it. And we went after him. He gave it to Rico Dowdle, and he ended up getting in the end zone, which was disappointing because I wanted to stop there. We had stopped them all day in the red zone. That was their lone red zone touchdown of the day. That would have been really a feather in the cap after a rough day at the office in short yardage situations. To do that would have been, really, really positive to see. But I was still pleased with the first and second down defense on those particular snaps. When it's all said and done, we know who we are. I think this game kind of solidified a few things for me. I kind of throw this performance out the window from this standpoint. It's human nature. I said this yesterday. It's human nature to go into a game like this. You come out of a playoff environment like last week to a sterile environment like this one, where you're playing a 7-9 Cowboys team who has nothing to play for, who's starting a quarterback who hasn't started a game for them since he's gotten there. And you're playing for an opportunity to remain a 6 seed, avoid going to Philadelphia, all of that good stuff. But and playing NFC East football, you want to beat Dallas. They already beat us once, all that stuff. And all of that is true. But these guys weren't focused. We haven't dropped these type. Like, I shouldn't say all season long, because we've had, situations here and there. The Bears game and the Steelers game are the two that really come to mind when you talk about drop passes and lack of focus and having a lackadaisical effort. But we really haven't had those issues here over the last, almost 2 months now. When that Steelers game was the last time we had a game with a ton of drops and missed opportunities in that regard. That game was in November sometime, right? So you're talking about almost a full, month and a half ago. So that might have been the beginning of November. So you could be talking about a full 2 months almost since that game took place. And I'm not even really concerned about some of the drops that we saw in this game, because I know that's not who we've been, right? Same with the turnovers. Like, that's why I said I'm not worried about us turning the ball over. That's not who we are, right? And we didn't turn it over in this game. That's because we did the Jameson Crowder muff, but that's not who we've been, right? So I expect us to take care of the football. The offensive line performance wasn't great, but Dallas is a unique front because of Michael Parsons. They pose a threat that most teams don't because Michael Parsons is that dude. So he creates chaos just by being on the field. I mean, there were times where we were triple teaming him, which you should be doing, double and triple teaming him, not giving him single coverage on Michael Dieter and asking Michael Dieter to block him one-on-one. That's ridiculous. But when it's all said and done, I expect the offensive line to be better, especially once you get back Tyler Biadasz. And I think we'll get some semblance of normalcy back on the offensive line because, again, assuming Brandon Coleman's health and assuming that there was no setbacks with Andrew Wiley, you should have your full five back for the first time, it feels like, in about a month. But I'm pretty sure they all played at some point together. It may have been brief, but it feels like Wiley's been out for 2 weeks now. The week before that, when he was in against the Saints, there was no Tyler Biadasz. He was sick. So I think you probably got to go all the way back to the Titans game. Is the last time we had a full complement of offensive linemen. So that'll be, some good news and a sight for sore eyes. I think the Eagles game might have been the last time when everybody played. But I mean, remember, we were dropping like flies in that game. Wiley got hurt in that game. Cornelius Lucas got hurt in that game. So it'll be good to get everybody back. But more importantly, I am going to be happy to see us be able to potentially get Marshawn Lattimore back. And I thought that Mikey Sainristil played his ass off in this game. And I'll tell you, Benjamin St-Juste wasn't bad, but the Cowboys had nobody out there, right? They had nobody out there. You put Mike Evans in front of him, and it's a replay of week 1 all over again. So the hope is Marshawn Lattimore is ready to go because we already know what it is. And I don't know what Joe Witt Jr. can do between now and Sunday night, but he's going to have to find a way to generate pass rush. We just haven't been able to do it, and we didn't do it. There were instances where Trey Lance had all day to throw the football. I mean, building an absolute brick house, brick by brick, piece by piece back there. We got to do something to disrupt the timing of a quarterback. Baker can be mobile, and you got to be selective in how you. But I think you got to do something. You got to do something, and when the opportunities come, this has been one of our issues. We got to do something. So many times this year, balls have tipped off of guys' hands, and not talking about ours. I'm talking about the opposition's hands, and we're never in the right place to benefit from a carom off of somebody's hands. Trey Lance had a pass in the flats to the tight end, skip off his hands into the air, and I'm like, oh, somebody be there. And, of course, falls harmlessly to the ground. Can we get one of those against Tampa? One where Baker puts a little hot sauce to go on it, caroms off of somebody's hands, or, Baker's a shorter guy in the pocket, so maybe he drops back, goes to throw it, we get our hands up, it gets tipped in the air. Can we pick one of those off? Clearly, Frankie Louvu can't catch one that's thrown right to him. All right, we've got that. Like, it's got to hit him in his body, in his stomach, or something like that for him to catch it. He can't catch it in his hands. So can we get something that's slowed down, caroms into the air that we can handle, so we can get a turnover? Because this is getting old now. Another opportunity for a turnover in the game, and we blow it. And it could have cost us. They got 3 points off of that. And in a game that, we were down by 3, and if they don't have those 3 points, maybe you don't go for 2, and maybe it's a different ball game, but whatever the case may be, that could have cost you. Could have cost you. Special teams wise, we got to tighten up. Punts, they make me nervous now. Jameson had a nice return again, but he also had another, and again, this one wasn't solely his fault, but that's another turnover on special teams. Special teams is supposed to be one of our strengths. and we've had games altered because of special teams turnovers. So we got to clean that shit up. I thought that Zane Gonzalez looked good in this game. He had one field goal attempt from 23, and then or 47, I believe, and then the other ones were pretty close. We only scored 2 touchdowns in the game, and he hit the other 3 field goals. So I think, but we went for 2 one time. I think we went for 2 and didn't get it. So did we score 3 touchdowns? Let's see. Terry scored 1. Ertz scored 1. You missed the 2-pointer. So that's 13. We had to have scored another touchdown. Mariota ran 1 in. There you go. So yeah, we scored 3 touchdowns and he kicked a field goal. So he looked good. Made all of his extra points, made the 47-yarder. I wonder what they're going to do because Austin Seibert is now technically available to come off of IR. They never activated him, though. I wonder if they have this week to do that, or did they need to do it before the end of the regular season? Because they put Seibert on IR, and I think you had to activate your guys off of IR prior to the end of the regular season for them to be able to come off of IR for a postseason run. I don't know if that's the case because I remember the Lions talking about Aiden Hutchinson, and he could be back for the Super Bowl. If that's the case, then you can activate somebody on IR for the playoffs. So I wonder if they're going to activate Austin Seibert and bring him back, or are they just going to roll with Zane Gonzalez? That's a real question to ask. Nobody's really asked that, so we really don't know. Maybe we'll find that out today. Maybe somebody will ask about it today, but that's something to keep in mind. But, one of the last things I'll say to you guys about Sunday's game was Terry McLaurin, doing what he ultimately did. It was another one of these frustrating games for Terry. The targets were there. He led the team in targets with 12. No one had more than 8 after Terry. So it wasn't a target issue. It was a connection issue. Terry had a drop, and the ball was a little high, but that's one we've seen Terry catch routinely. And Jaden had one where it was just out of the outstretched arms, when he had a little bit of time, and Terry dove and extend for it, but he couldn't get it. They just were out of sync, right? Threw a slant to him. It was too far out in front of him. They just weren't on the same page. And that was the same thing from the Falcons game the week before, where they just weren't in sync. And it was another frustrating outing for him. And then that final drive happened. And it was really Terry McLaurin all the time on that drive. And he brought us home. Tough 3rd down catch against Deron Bland, another catch for a 1st down. And then obviously the touchdown catch on Bland with 6 seconds to go. That's what your best players do. They close the show for you in the biggest moments. And none of us wanted to go to overtime, not because we thought we were going to lose the game. Nobody wanted to go to overtime with Dallas. Like that, I didn't want more football. I want this to be over with. And Terry said, "Me too." And he took care of business. And that's an encouraging sign heading into the postseason. You know what else was very encouraging? Dyami Brown. I hope you guys see the value. And not only that, I want Dyami back. If Cliff Kingsbury is back, I want Dyami Brown back. And I'm not telling you not to add any more receivers, because we are definitely upgrading the position in the offseason. But, I mean, I know that this is a pretty robust group that we have right now, and decisions have to be made. OZ, Dyami, Jamison Crowder, all these guys are free agents after the season, and decisions have to be made. But the only guys you have currently under contract right now going into next year is Terry and Luke. All the rest of the receivers may not be here next year. And so there could be a total overhaul of the receiver position. But if you're asking me, Noah Brown is fine to come back if he wants to come back, if they want to have him back, you know. But Diami is, to me, more valuable than a Noah Brown, especially if you go get a T. Higgins type guy. But it won't hurt to have two big guys, so if one gets injured, you still got another guy that can kind of replicate that. But obviously, the two are not the same. T. Higgins does not equal Noah Brown, right? So I just feel like Diami offers you something that we don't currently have, as I've said numerous times. And I'll even take it a step further. Diami's the only guy that can make somebody miss and get yards after the catch or yards after a handoff or whatever. He's the only guy that we have that can make somebody miss like out in space, that has any type of shiftiness. We don't have anybody else. Like when Diami has it in his hands, it feels fluid. When OZ has it, when Terry has it, when, Jameson, none of those guys feel fluid, to me at least. I can't speak for you. Luke definitely isn't fluid. So I think he's the one guy that gives you fluidity. I just think there's value in having him. I think his game has expanded since the Noah Brown injury. They've asked more of him. They've asked more of OZ, and those guys have responded. Even though it was a rough day for OZ, OZ has responded. He made that big catch that really got the offense flowing and gave the life offensively, gave us a bit of juice and a spark. So, Diami was good to see him back, and they used him in a multitude of ways. They handed it to him. They threw it to him. He threw the football. They threw receiver screens to him, slants, all of that good stuff. So he was back in a major way, and it was good to see because, as I've said, he's our best wide receiver screen guy. And boy, did we run like 3 or 4 receiver screens to the point where the Cowboys were like, okay, enough of this shit, and they tackled him for like a 3-yard loss. But I just love the fact that he's back and he can contribute in that regard. So that was also something positive from the game yesterday. Noquan Martin, you feel his presence now, right? I think that's one of those guys you kind of take for granted because he's not making a bunch of plays, right? Not taking it away. He did have the interception against the Falcons, but he hasn't been a big turnover-inducing guy. So I think you kind of take his presence for granted. We need Quan Martin healthy. So I think that was just a brief reminder of, hey, you could have Defoe out here. You could have Percival out here. Do you really want that? No. So I'm glad that that's just an illness, and he'll get over that, and he'll be ready to rock on Sunday versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because we definitely need him as well. But the overarching theme is we got a lot of things to clean up. But, man, I love the spot that we sit in. And, I'm going to talk crazy this week. So you brace yourself. I'll be talking crazy this week because now I get to be delusional, playoff fan that starts talking about all kinds of craziness. I'm gonna follow the rules, right? The rules say one game at a time. And I'm going to follow that. I'm going to adhere to that. But I'm going to sprinkle in a little bullshit along the way. We're going to enjoy this because we don't know how long this is going to last, right? We could be one and done. I've already told you, I have no intentions of being one and done. I'm damn near guaranteed victory already. I went all the way up to the guarantee line. I ain't cross it. But damn if I ain't standing right at that guarantee line, looking at it like, say I won't cross it. Say I won't cross it. A lot of shit got to clean up. The Bucks pose a lot of threats. But guess what? So do we. And I like our threats more than I like theirs. So be a good challenge. Glad we beat the Cowboys. Glad we gave them their 10th loss of the season. Glad we got our 12th win of the season. Glad to be riding the momentum and the wave of a 5-game heater heading into the postseason. We got the longest win streak in the NFC heading into the playoffs. No team in the entire bracket has won 5 straight heading into the postseason. Not the Packers, Not the Vikings after losing last night. Not the Bucks, obviously. Not the not the Rams, excuse me. Obviously, they just lost. Not the Bucks, right? Clearly. Not the Eagles, courtesy of us, right? And not the number 1 seeded Detroit Lions. They lost to Buffalo about a month ago. So we got the longest win streak. We're the hottest team in the conference. We got to conduct ourselves as such. And I like our chances a lot. Not concerned about Jaden. He said after the game, if it was like, a game that we had to have, there was no way he was coming out of the game. He was fine and to go. But it wasn't that type of situation. So we didn't need to approach it as such. So I'm more than confident. My buddy called me and said, hey, I saw your quarterback came out. He's a Bucs fan, right? He said, hey, I saw your quarterback come out. Is he all right? I had to diffuse that situation quick. I was like, nah, he fine. He good. He's like, shit. He wanted him to be a little banged up because he already knows he's a problem. So as long as 5 is good, we're good. Anyway, day after feels good. Feels good, feels good. We go into the offs. We go into the offs. We go into the offs. And we going to party, party, party while we at the offs. Watch party location has been set. I'll have more information for you, but we're going to be at Cities Bar and Grill in Richmond. All right. So that's where it's going to be. Obviously, the game is at 8 o'clock. So the doors are going to open at 6 on Sunday evening. We're going to do all of the other things early. I'm going to mingle with everybody that gets there early. If you are a part of a package where, pictures are a part of that, we're going to do all of that stuff prior to the game starting and get all of that stuff out of the way. So when the game kicks off, we can just turn up and have a blast watching the game, talking about all of the, different things that are transpiring. And let's not act like there won't be a game. The Eagles will be playing, before our game. So we'll be watching that. Obviously, if you show up at 6 o'clock, we'll be watching the Eagles and Packers game. That game will be taking place before our game. So lots to get to. I'll have more on that. But if you haven't already purchased your tickets, what are you waiting on? Get that done. Link is in the description. I will also pin it to the comment section of this video, and I will talk more about it tonight. It'll be all over my social media. I'll be pushing it very heavily now that we know the time. We now have a venue, and we now know the date. All right, January 12th, Sunday evening. We're going to turn up, and hopefully you'll be in attendance to help us do exactly that. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Day after the Commanders beat the Dallas Cowboys to finish up their regular season at 12-5. Let that sink in. Say that to yourself out loud. We're 12-5. Say that out loud. I went through, just because I'm petty, I went through the draft order. This is something that we did quite often last year, right? For all the wrong reasons. And I went through the draft order just to see where we would be. We are at 26th. How sweet it is. I saw coaches getting fired this morning, and I just kept on scrolling. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That was us last year, right? Coaching carousel, who's available, where are we drafting, yada, yada. We don't got to worry about that. GM search, can we interview this guy? We got to put in a request for this guy. We don't got to worry about none of that. That's in the rear view. It's all new. It's all new. And you know what else? It's our year. Our year. Let's go, man. Let's enjoy this. Got the Cowboys once. Mad that we didn't get them twice, but can't cry over spilt milk. Got the Eagles once, right? Only team in the division to be able to lay claim to that. Swept the Giants like we supposed to. And now we on to bigger and better things. Speaking of which, I can't confirm this right now, but NFC East Super Friends should be tonight at 8:30. Should be tonight at 8:30. Still trying to, get the particulars of that situation squared away. If it's not tonight, it'll definitely be Wednesday. But it should be tonight, 8:30 over on the NFC East Super Friends channel. So keep your eyes peeled for that, ears to the street. If anything changes, of course, I'll let you know. But in any event, celebrate! We go into the offs. We go into the offs. And we ain't just going to the offs to make a cameo. We going to do damage. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.